Good evening. I hope you're comfortable. If you're not, now would be a good time to adjust your pillow or shift your weight a little to the left or right. There's no hurry. I'll wait. All right. Tonight I wanted to talk to you about anxiety, which is sort of a funny thing to talk about before bed, I know. Like bringing up taxes at a birthday party or mentioning dental work during dessert. But I think maybe it's okay, because anxiety doesn't really care what time it is anyway. It shows up when it wants to. And sometimes the best thing you can do with an unwelcome guest is to just acknowledge them. Say hello. Offer them a chair. Maybe they'll settle down if they feel seen. I've been thinking about anxiety a lot lately, not in a worried way, or, well, not only in a worried way, more in the way you might think about weather patterns or the migration routes of geese, something that happens, that has always happened, that will probably keep happening. And once you start paying attention, you notice it everywhere, in the way people hold their shoulders, in the speed at which they talk. In the specific way, someone says I'm fine when you ask how they are. Last Tuesday I was at the grocery store. It was about 4:30 in the afternoon, which is not a great time to go to the grocery store if you can help it. But I needed eggs. I had used the last one that morning making French toast, which came out okay, but not great. The bread was a little thick. Anyway, I was standing in the checkout line behind a woman who was maybe in her 60s, and she was unloading her cart very carefully, one item at a time, checking each one before she set it on the belt, and I could see her hands shaking just slightly. Not a lot. Just enough that when she picked up a can of soup, it rattled a little against her rings. The cashier was a young guy named Derek. I know because I taught his older sister in choir about 8 years ago. Derek was going pretty fast, scanning items, and I noticed he kept glancing at the line behind us, which had gotten longer. And the woman kept trying to go faster, fumbling with her coupons, apologizing even though there was nothing to apologize for. And Derek said, "No rush, take your time," but he said it quickly while still scanning, which sort of defeated the purpose. I didn't say anything. I just waited. But I thought about how anxiety is contagious like that, how it can pass between people without anyone saying a word, how it lives in the space between what we're doing and how fast we think we should be doing it. When I got home, I sat in my car for a minute before going inside. Just sat there with the eggs in a paper bag on the passenger seat. I could hear them settling, that soft sound eggs make against each other, like small stones wrapped in cloth. And I thought, what a strange thing to be a person, to have a body that needs eggs, to have a mind that worries about whether you're taking too long to buy them. The first time I remember feeling anxious, really noticing it as a specific thing, I was 9 years old. It was the night before the school choir concert. We were singing Edelweiss from The Sound of Music, and I had a small solo part. Just 2 lines. But those 2 lines felt enormous. They felt like they had weight, like they might be too heavy to carry from my seat in the second row all the way to the microphone. I remember lying in bed that night, and my grandmother was staying with us because my parents had gone to a wedding in Milwaukee. She came into my room because she heard me shifting around. I wasn't crying or anything, just moving, rearranging myself, trying to find a position that would make the feeling go away. She sat on the edge of the bed and didn't ask what was wrong. She just said, "Can't settle, huh?" And I said no. And she said, "Me neither sometimes," which was surprising to hear, because my grandmother seemed like someone who could settle anywhere. She was the kind of person who could fall asleep in a chair during a thunderstorm, or in the car on the way home from church. But she told me that when she was young, before a big test or a date, or sometimes for no reason at all, she'd lie awake feeling like something bad was about to happen, even though nothing bad was actually happening. It's like your brain is trying to protect you from a bear, she said. Even when there's no bear, your brain isn't always that smart. It just wants to keep you safe. I asked her what she did about it, and she said, "Well, I talk to it. I say, 'Thank you for trying to help, but I'm okay right now. You can rest.'" I tried it that night. I didn't say it out loud because that felt silly, but I thought it, and I don't know if it worked exactly. I still felt nervous, but I also felt less alone with the nervousness, like it was something I could have a conversation with, instead of something that was just happening to me. The concert went fine, by the way. I forgot one word in my solo, but nobody seemed to notice except me. And Mrs. Patterson, the choir director, who gave me a look that wasn't mad, just aware. A look that said, I saw that, and it's okay. I think a lot of anxiety is about the gap between who we are and who we think we're supposed to be, or the gap between what's happening and what we think should be happening. It's that space in between where the worry lives, like, right now maybe you're lying there thinking you should be asleep already, that you should be better at this, that other people probably don't need someone talking to them about anxiety yet. What time is it for you? Whatever time it is. Other people probably just close their eyes and drift off like reasonable, well-adjusted human beings. But I don't think that's true. I think most people are carrying around some version of this feeling. We're just all pretending we're not. We're all in the grocery store, trying not to let our hands shake, apologizing for taking up space. There's a man in my neighborhood named Gene who has a very beautiful garden. Tomatoes, zucchini, 3 kinds of beans, flowers I don't know the names of. Every morning in the summer, around 6 a.m., he's out there watering. And I walk past sometimes on my way to get coffee, and we wave. We don't usually talk because it's early, and there's something nice about the quiet. But one morning, he called me over. He was looking at his tomato plants. They were doing well, big and green, some of them already fruiting. But he looked worried. You think they're getting enough water? He asked. I said they looked great to me. Yeah, but maybe too much water. You can overwater tomatoes. Kills them just as dead as underwatering. I didn't know what to say to that. So I said, they look really healthy, Gene. And he nodded, but he didn't look convinced. He said, I just worry I'm doing it wrong. Every year I think maybe this is the year I finally figure it out. And every year, I'm still not sure. He's been gardening for 40 years. I think about that sometimes. How you can do something for 40 years and still feel like you don't quite know what you're doing. Still worry you're getting it wrong. And maybe that's just part of being alive. Maybe we're not supposed to feel certain. Maybe certainty isn't even the goal. Gene's tomatoes, by the way, were delicious. He brought me some in late July. I ate them sliced with a little salt standing at my kitchen counter, and they were perfect. He probably worried they weren't. There's a thing that happens sometimes at night where a sound you've heard 1,000 times suddenly becomes unfamiliar. The refrigerator hums, and instead of just being the refrigerator, it becomes a question. Is the refrigerator supposed to sound like that? Has it always sounded like that? Or the house settles, wood contracting as the temperature drops, a perfectly normal thing. But at 2 a.m., it doesn't feel normal. It feels like maybe something is wrong. Maybe something has always been wrong, and you're only just now noticing. I used to fight that feeling. I'd lie there and try to convince myself everything was fine, tell myself I was being ridiculous. But that never really helped. It just added another layer. Now I was anxious and mad at myself for being anxious. These days I try to do what my grandmother suggested. I just acknowledge it. I say, not out loud usually, but sometimes out loud if it's bad enough, I hear you. I know you're trying to help, but I think we're okay. And then I try to find something else to pay attention to. The weight of the blanket, the sound of wind in the trees outside, if there is any, my own breathing, in and out, which is happening automatically without me doing anything, which is kind of incredible if you think about it. Your body just knows how to breathe. You've been doing it your whole life, without really trying. Sometimes that helps. Sometimes it doesn't. But at least I'm not fighting with myself anymore. At least I'm not adding the anxiety about the anxiety. Last fall, I went for a walk in the woods behind the school. It was late October, and the leaves were mostly down. Everything was brown and grey and quiet in that particular way October can be quiet, where the world feels like it's holding its breath before winter. I wasn't feeling especially anxious that day. I just wanted to walk. But about 20 minutes in, I started thinking about something a student had said to me that week. It wasn't a bad thing. It was actually kind of nice. She'd said my class was her favorite because it was low stress. And at first, I felt good about that. But then I started wondering if low stress meant too easy, if I wasn't challenging them enough, if I was doing them a disservice by making things comfortable. And then I started thinking about all the other things I might be doing wrong. Not just in teaching, but in general. All the emails I hadn't responded to yet, the phone call I'd been putting off, the fact that I still hadn't replaced the light bulb in the bathroom, and it had been out for 3 weeks. By the time I realized I was doing it, I was standing in the middle of the trail with my heart beating faster and my jaw clenched, thinking about a light bulb. I stopped walking, just stood there, and I made myself look around. There was a tree nearby that had fallen, probably in a storm years ago. It was covered in moss now, soft and green, even though everything else was brown. And there was a small bird, I think it was a nuthatch, walking headfirst down another tree trunk, which is something nuthatches do. They don't care about gravity the way other birds do. They just go about their business upside down. I watched that bird for maybe 2 minutes, just watched it move down the tree, pecking at the bark, completely unconcerned with anything except whatever it was finding in the bark. And the anxious feeling didn't disappear exactly. But it got quieter. It moved to the back of the room and sat down. I think one of the hardest things about anxiety is that it's often about things that might happen, not things that are happening. It's about the future, the imagined conversation that goes badly, the worst-case scenario, the thing you might forget or mess up or lose. And the future is this strange thing because it doesn't exist yet. It's not real, but it can feel more real than the present moment. It can feel more solid than the chair you're sitting in, or the ground under your feet. I read once, I think it was in a book someone gave me, or maybe I saw it on a poster at the dentist's office, that the word worry comes from an Old English word that means to strangle or to choke, which feels right. Because that's what it does, isn't it? It chokes out the present moment. It strangles the simple, actual experience of being alive right now. Right now, for instance, you're lying down. You're hearing my voice, or reading these words, depending on how you're experiencing this. You're breathing. The room around you has a certain temperature. There are sounds, maybe. The hum of a fan, or traffic outside, or nothing at all. None of those things are problems. In this specific moment, in the actual present tense, you're okay. The anxiety is about later, about tomorrow, or next week, or 5 minutes from now, about whether you'll be able to fall asleep, or what you have to do when you wake up, or whether you said the wrong thing earlier today. But right now you're just here, and that's enough. My friend Sarah has 2 kids, and a few months ago her youngest, who's 5, started having trouble at bedtime. He'd be fine all day, but as soon as it was time to sleep, he'd get scared. Not of anything specific, just scared. Sarah tried everything. Night lights, music, keeping the door open, sitting with him until he fell asleep. Sometimes those things worked, sometimes they didn't. One night, I was over for dinner, and she was telling me about it. And she looked so tired. Not just physically tired, though she was that too, but tired in the way people get when they're trying really hard to fix something and nothing's working. I just don't know what he's afraid of, she said. He can't tell me. He just says he feels worried. And I thought about that. How hard it must be to be 5 years old and feel worried and not even know why. To not have the words for it yet. To just know that there's a bad feeling, and it's big, and it won't go away. But also, how that doesn't really change when you get older. We just get better at pretending we know what we're worried about. We assign it to things. Work, money, relationships, health. And sometimes those are real concerns. But sometimes I think the worry comes first, and then it goes looking for something to attach itself to. It's just free-floating nervousness that needs a target. I told Sarah about the thing my grandmother used to say, about thanking your brain for trying to protect you, even when there's nothing to protect you from. I don't know if she tried it with her son, but a few weeks later she texted me to say bedtime was going a little better. She said she'd started acknowledging his feelings instead of trying to fix them, just saying, I know you feel worried. That must be hard. But you're safe. I'm right here. Sometimes that's all we can do. For ourselves, for each other. Just acknowledge the feeling. Say, I see it. It's real. And also, you're safe. There's a diner in town called Morton's. It's been there for probably 60 years. They serve breakfast all day, and the coffee is okay but not great. And there's a small jukebox in the corner that still works if you feed it quarters. I go there sometimes on Saturday mornings. Usually sit at the counter. And there's a waitress there named Diane who's worked there for as long as I can remember. She's probably in her 70s now. Moves a little slower than she used to, but still fills your coffee cup before you realize it's empty. One Saturday I was sitting there, eating scrambled eggs and toast, and Diane was wiping down the counter. It was late morning, and the rush had cleared. Just me and one other guy at a booth, reading a newspaper. Diane stopped wiping and just stood there for a second, looking out the window. And then she said, more to herself than to me, I used to worry all the time. I didn't know if she wanted me to respond, so I just waited. She kept looking out the window, about everything. About Larry. That's my ex-husband. About the kids. About money. About whether I was a good mother. Whether I was doing anything right. She picked up the coffee pot and refilled my cup, even though it was still half full. And you know what happened with all that worrying? I said I didn't. Same things that would have happened anyway. She smiled, but it was a sad kind of smile. Larry left. The kids grew up. Some things went wrong. Some things went right. All that worrying didn't change any of it. Just made me tired. She moved down the counter to wipe another section. And then she added, quieter, but I still do it. Not as much, maybe. But I still wake up some mornings with that feeling. Like something bad is coming. I asked her what she does when that happens. She thought about it. I come to work. I pour coffee. I talk to people. I do the next thing, and then the thing after that. And eventually the feeling goes away. Or it doesn't. But either way, the day still happens. I think about that sometimes. How the day still happens. How life keeps going whether we're anxious about it or not. Which sounds bleak, maybe, but I don't think it is. I think it's sort of comforting. The day doesn't need your permission. The sun comes up. Time moves forward. You're carried along by it, even when you're not sure you can carry yourself. It's gotten darker outside, I imagine. Or maybe it's been dark for a while. Time does this thing at night where it stretches out. 5 minutes can feel like 30. An hour can feel like 5 minutes. It's hard to tell. If you're still awake, that's okay. There's no wrong way to do this. I want to tell you about one more thing, if that's all right. A few years ago, I went through a period where I felt anxious almost all the time. It wasn't about anything specific, or maybe it was about everything. I'd wake up with it, go to bed with it. It was just there, like a low hum in the background of every moment. I didn't talk to anyone about it. I don't know why. Maybe I thought it would go away on its own. Maybe I thought it wasn't bad enough to bother anyone with. Maybe I was embarrassed. But it didn't go away. It got worse. And finally, one day, I was sitting in my car outside the school before first period, and I realized I couldn't make myself go inside. Not because I didn't want to teach. I love teaching. But the thought of walking through that door, of seeing people, of having to be present and functional and normal, it felt impossible. I sat there for maybe 15 minutes, missing the start of class, which I never do. And finally I called my friend Mike, who teaches math 2 doors down from me. I told him I couldn't come in, that I didn't know what was wrong, but something was wrong. And he didn't ask a lot of questions. He just said, okay, I'll cover your class. Go home. Take care of yourself. And then he said, this happened to me a few years ago. It's scary, but it passes. You'll be okay. I went home, called a substitute for the rest of the week, saw a doctor, then a therapist, started figuring some things out. And Mike was right. It passed. Not all at once, not easily, but it passed. The thing I learned from that, though, is that I wasn't as alone as I thought. When I finally started talking about it, carefully at first, then more openly. Almost everyone had a story. Not the same story, but a story. A time when anxiety had gotten too big to carry by themselves. A period where everything felt fragile and uncertain and scary. We're all walking around with these invisible weights, thinking we're the only ones. But we're not. I can hear the wind picking up outside my window. It's supposed to snow tonight, I think. Just an inch or two. Enough to make everything quiet in the morning. There's something about snow that helps with anxiety, I've found. The way it muffles sound, the way it covers things, not forever. It melts eventually, and everything underneath is still there. But for a little while, there's just softness, just white, just quiet. Maybe that's what we're doing here, in a way. Just putting a soft, quiet blanket over the day, over the worries and the what-ifs and the voices that tell us we're not doing enough or being enough. Just for a little while, we can let those things rest. Your anxiety might still be there in the morning. Probably will be. It's persistent like that. But right now, in this moment, you can let your shoulders drop. You can unclench your jaw, if it's clenched. You can let your breathing slow down. You can just be a person, lying down, listening to a voice talk about anxiety in the gentlest way it knows how. And that's enough. You're enough. I'm going to tell you something my grandmother told me that last night before the choir concert. After she said the thing about thanking your brain, she stood up to leave. But before she got to the door, she turned around and said, "You know, Joey, being nervous means you care. It means whatever you're doing tomorrow matters to you. And that's not a bad thing. That's actually kind of beautiful. I didn't understand it at the time. I just wanted to not feel nervous. But I think I understand it now. Your anxiety isn't evidence that something's wrong with you. It's evidence that you're alive, that you're engaged with the world, that things matter to you. It's just trying to protect you, in its clumsy way, like a dog that barks too much, or a friend who worries too loud. It means well. It just doesn't always know when to stop, so you can acknowledge it, thank it even, and then gently, kindly tell it to rest. You're okay. Right now, in this moment, you're okay. The eggs I bought that Tuesday, the ones I was telling you about earlier, I used them to make French toast again the next morning. I sliced the bread a little thinner this time. It came out better. I ate it standing at the kitchen window, watching the light change. The sun was just coming up. Everything was blue, then pink, then gold, and I wasn't thinking about anything in particular. I was just standing there, eating French toast, watching the morning happen, and for those few minutes, there was no gap between who I was and who I was supposed to be. No distance between what was happening and what should be happening. I was just there, and it was quiet, and it was enough. I hope you're feeling sleepy now. I hope your thoughts are starting to blur at the edges. I hope the day is beginning to feel far away, like something that happened to someone else. If you're still worried about something, that's okay. You can pick it up again tomorrow if you need to. It'll wait for you. But for now, just let it be. Let yourself be held by the dark, by the quiet, by the simple fact of your own breathing. You've done enough today. You've been enough today. And tomorrow when you wake up, whether it's to snow or sun or grey sky, you'll do it again. You'll do the next thing, and then the thing after that. And some of those things will be hard, and some will be easy, and some will be beautiful in ways you don't expect. But that's tomorrow. Tonight, you can rest. The wind has gotten quieter outside, or maybe I've just gotten used to it. It's hard to tell sometimes what's changed and what's just become familiar. I'm going to stop talking soon. Let you drift off, or think your own thoughts, or just lie there in the dark. Whatever you need. But before I go, I want to say one more thing. You're going to be okay. Not because everything will work out perfectly. Not because the anxiety will disappear forever. But because you're resilient in ways you don't even realize. Because you've made it through every single difficult day you've ever had. 100% success rate so far. And tomorrow, if it's hard, you'll make it through that one too. but that's tomorrow. Tonight, just be here. Just breathe. Just rest. Good night. Sleep well. Thank you for letting me talk to you about anxiety. I hope I helped, even a little. And if I didn't, I hope at least the sound of a voice in the dark made you feel less alone. You're not alone. None of us are, really. We're all just doing the best we can. And that's enough. You're enough. Good night.